everyone. It's time for Mrs. Ballou Reads, and we are continuing to read Return to the 100-Acre Wood by David Benedictus and decorations by Mark Burgess in the tradition of A.A. Milne and Ernest H. Shepard. And we are almost finished with this book, and we might finish it today. Let's see how it goes. We're on Chapter 8. This book was published by Dutton Children's Books. Chapter 8, in which we are introduced to the game of cricket. Christopher Robin had had a birthday. There had been cards with laughing kittens wishing him a happy day, and the usual presents. Socks and gloves and writing paper and a fat book called 1,001 Things to Do in the Holidays. Christopher Robin had used the writing paper to write letters saying thank you for the socks and the gloves. He had not found this easy. There he is, writing his letters. Thinking that a letter saying, "Dear whoever, thank you for the socks, gloves, yours sincerely, Christopher Robin," would have done the job nicely, but it seemed that people wanted bits about the weather and where he had come in mass, and "I do hope you are well." Having put the socks and gloves in the very back of the drawer, he turned to 1,001 Things to Do in the Holidays. On page 3, it suggested clearing out the potting shed. And on page 5, it suggested putting toys in boxes with sticky labels on them. And on page 7, it suggested, why not make a list of all the people you most admire from your history books? Christopher Robin did not know what it said on page 9, because after reading page 7, he had closed the book and never opened it again. But there was one present that he had liked very much. This had been a cricket bat, a cricket ball, and two sets of stumps with bails that assembled into a wicket. There was also a pair of batting gloves, some shin pads, a pair of wicket-keeping gloves, a scoring book with pencils, a pencil sharpener, an eraser, a tin of linseed oil, and some squares of cotton for rubbing the oil into the bat, all of which fitted very neatly into a splendid sausage-shaped bag. Everything you needed to play cricket. This time, when he wrote his thank you letter, he had added pictures and colored crayons and his batting average for the past 2 summers and signed the letter, "Love from Christopher Robin," and he meant it too. On this particular day, it may have been a Tuesday, because it often was, he brought the bag to a clearing in the forest halfway between his house and Owl's house and set up the stumps and the bales on a patch of ground which was not too bumpy. Then he went around the edge of the playing area with bags of stones, laying them out to mark the boundary. It was not long before most of the others had gathered around, and Christopher Robin began to explain the rules. Cricket is a game between 2 teams. Each team bats once, that's called an inning, and tries to score as many runs as possible. The batter faces the bowler from the opposite team, who bowls the ball at him like this. Christopher Robin turned his arm and opened his fingers as if he were letting a ball fly out of his hand. If he hits the ball, the batter sprints toward where the bowler was standing and back again. If he reaches the bowler, he scores a run. And if he gets back to where he started from, he scores another. If the ball goes right outside the boundary without bouncing, he's scored 6 runs. But if it bounces, then he only gets 4. "That's easy," said Piglet. "You could just keep going backwards and forwards and getting loads of runs." "Ah, yes, but the other team is trying to stop you. If you miss the ball and it knocks over your stumps, you're out. If you hit the ball and one of the fielders catches it before it bounces, then you're out too. The same goes if the fielder throws the ball and hits the stumps while you are running. When all the first team is out, everyone changes places, and the batters become the bowlers and fielders." There he is explaining it to everyone. And there's Eeyore, who "Seems like a lot of running up and down," said Eeyore, "for no very good purpose." "No, no," said Christopher Robin, getting excited. "You see, it's like this." So he told them more strange things about having a short leg and a silly point and run-outs and when a ball was a no ball and things like that. And while the animals felt that this cricket business was not entirely sensible, they definitely started to get the idea that it was fun. Over the next few days, from morning until night, while the bees buzzed contentedly around the hollow oak and the gentle whine of an airplane looping the loop above the 100-acre wood throbbed in the scented air, it was cricket, cricket, and ever more cricket. Finally, Kanga, who had relatives in Australia, proposed that a proper match should be arranged and that it should be a test match. Pooh asked what that was. Christopher Robin said, "Test match is a very important game played between England and Australia. The winner gets the Ashes." "What ashes are those?" asked Rabbit. "I'm not quite sure, Rabbit. I've got the ashes of my Uncle Robert in a vase on my mantelpiece, said Owl. It blew over in the great gale, and the vase broke, but I got a new vase and most of the ashes. I think we should have a test match, said Kanga. Me and Roo can be Australia, and the rest of you can be England. It can't just be two of you, said Christopher Robin. That wouldn't be fair at all. We're very good, said Roo. Really, we are. Watch me, saying which he swung the bat in the air and fell over backwards as he aimed it at the ball. That was just a practice swing, he explained, and tried again and fell over backwards again. If there were just the two of you, with one of you bowling and one of you keeping wicket, there would be nobody left to field, said Christopher Robin. I need to think about this. He went to sit on a large boulder, which was an excellent place to think, because it was just the right height and did not interrupt. Eventually he climbed down and announced, We will have a test match, but we won't be playing for the ashes of Owl's Uncle Robert, and it won't be England against Australia. The match will be between the four-legged and the two-legged animals. It will be held the day after tomorrow and will begin at 11. Cricket under the trees and having fun. Count me out, grumbled Eeyore. But Eeyore, said Pooh, we won't be able to manage without you. Eeyore raised an eyebrow. These are the teams, continued Christopher Robin. The four legs, Pooh, Tigger, Rabbit, and Piglet. The two legs, Kanga, Roo, and me. Owl is to be the umpire. I will captain the four legs team, said Rabbit immediately, while some of the others counted their legs. Lottie cleared her throat. Excuse me, she said quietly. Oh, Lottie, I am sorry, said Christopher Robin, but the truth of it was that he couldn't remember whether Lottie had four legs or two, and it seemed rude to look. I know my legs are quite short, Lottie continued, but that is the way with otters. There are four of them, and they have been much admired. Of course, Lottie, said Christopher Robin. I was only hesitating because the four legs already outnumber the two legs. Then I shall play for the two legs, of course, said Lottie. After Christopher Robin had thought about it, and Rabbit had got tired of waiting and had gone to clear out the larder, there was never much in it because he liked it to be clean, and Pooh had had several smackrels of honey, and Piglet had become quite pink with excitement thinking about the match, and Tigger had had a swallow of the linseed oil and not cared for it at all. A team sheet was produced with the teams set out impressively like this. Four legs, Tigger, Pooh, Piglet, Rabbit, Captain, Eeyore, wicket keeper. Two legs, Kanga, Roo, Lottie, who actually has four, Sea Robin, Captain, Eeyore, wicket keeper. Umpire Owl, his decision is final. Scorers, Henry Rush, and friends and relations too small to participate. Extra fielders, friends and relations big enough to catch a ball without being squished. What does the scorer do? Asked Henry Rush, the beetle. He adds things up and writes everything down in a book. How is your adding? Said Christopher Robin. It's very good some of the time, replied Henry Rush, but it's difficult when you haven't got fingers. Just do your best, said Christopher Robin, patting him gently on the shell. Christopher Robin made several copies of the team sheet and decorated them with bats and balls and stumps and bales and pinned them to the trees around the clearing. Piglet took a copy and showed it to Eeyore. It's good, isn't it, Eeyore? We're all on it, he pointed. This is where it says my name. And your name, Eeyore, is here and here. Here and here? Inquired Eeyore. Yes, Eeyore, because Christopher Robin says you are to be wicket keeper for both sides. A wicked keeper, little Piglet. Well, well, well. Eeyore did not know what a wicket keeper was, or what it did, but it sounded necessary. It was time for the umpire to toss a coin to decide who would bat first. Captain Rabbit had not come back after going to clean his larder, so Tigger was sent to retrieve him, and Pooh was selected as acting captain for the Four Legs team. Heads or tails? Asked Owl, the umpire. I don't know, Owl, said Pooh. Which is better? Whichever is going to come up on top. But I don't know that, which is why I'm asking you to guess, Pooh Bear. Pooh called heads, but the coin came up, tails up. And Christopher Robin announced that the two legs would bat first with Kanga and Lottie, opening the innings. Where does the wicket keeper go? Eeyore asked. Behind the wicket, of course, said Christopher Robin. You have to catch the ball. How do I do that? Asked Eeyore, looking at his hooves. Any way you can, Eeyore. You have pads and gloves. I hardly like to mention this, Christopher Robin, but there appear to be only two pads, and others are wearing them. You'll just have to do the best you can, said Christopher Robin, who was beginning to think that there was too much talking and not enough playing. Rabbit, as captain, made Pooh the bowler, saying he needed the exercise. Lottie hit the first ball of the innings into a clump of heather, and it was only when friends and relations joined in the search that the ball was found. At the end of Lottie's first 6 balls, Henry Rush's scoring team put 30 in the scoring book, under instruction from Rabbit, who kept muttering bad-temperedly, "She scored 3 6s and 3 4s. Lottie should be on my team." On his second go at bowling, Pooh became more confident and bowled a couple of really fast ones, the first of which struck Eeyore on the chest. "Well stopped, Eeyore," cried Rabbit, and there was scattered applause. "Couldn't help it," wheezed Eeyore. Then it was Tigger's turn to bowl. He threw the ball high into the air. "That's called a donkey drop," said Christopher Robin. "Not by me," muttered Eeyore. This time, instead of using the bat to hit the ball, Lottie leapt into the air, twisting and turning, and caught hold of it in mid-flight. Everyone applauded her athleticism, but Christopher Robin had to explain that she was not supposed to catch it, except when the other side was batting. "Out!" cried Owl. "What do you mean by out?" Lottie went up to the Owl, the umpire, and glared at him. Owl did not react. Christopher Robin explained that if the umpire said that you were out, he did not need to tell you why. "You're no gentleman," Lottie told Owl, and sulked for a while behind some bluebells, before realizing how pretty they looked and picking herself a bunch. Now it was Kanga's turn to bat. She put Roo into her pouch, and when she ran, she claimed double the score. "Both Roo and me," she said. "Not sure about that," said Owl, and after several such runs judged Roo to be out because his feet had not touched the ground. When Kanga challenged him, Owl explained, "It says 2 legs, not no legs. I can't allow any of those runs to count for either of you, and you're out too, Kanga, for arguing with the umpire." Fortunately for the 2 legs, Christopher Robin was still to bat against Rabbit, and he thwacked the ball for 4 6s, one after another, just like that. When Piglet took his turn as bowler, he found the ball so heavy that Owl allowed him to run halfway along the pitch before rolling it along the ground. It was Piglet who finally did it for Christopher Robin, bowled out after 33 runs. This was what Henry Rush, with a little help from Christopher Robin, wrote in the smart new scoring book. Test match, 2 legs versus 4 legs. 2 legs innings. Lottie, caught by Lottie, 39. Roo, feet off the ground, 0. Kanga, arguing with umpire, 0. Christopher Robin, bowled by Piglet, 33. Extras, 3. Total, 75. Rabbit and Kanga had spent the morning erecting a sort of shade underneath the chestnut trees. It consisted of a number of sheets and blankets stitched together. Now, between the 2 innings, was the time for a refreshing pot of tea and some peppery cucumber sandwiches with the crust cut off. While they ate, they discussed the match. Was 75 a winning score? Should Owl have given Roo out, or for that matter, Kanga? How clever of Piglet to have bowled the ball that knocked over Christopher Robin's wicket. A little apart from the others stood Eeyore, grumbling as usual. "This wicked keeping, standing there and having things thrown at me. A brick wall would do just as well." "Oh, Eeyore," said Christopher Robin, "we couldn't have a match without you." "Is that what they're saying, Christopher Robin, or is it, 'Let the old donkey do it'?" "Have a cucumber sandwich, Eeyore," suggested Christopher Robin. Prefer thistles, more chewy on the whole." "Have we finished now, Christopher Robin? Can we go home and nurse our bruises?" asked Eeyore. "We finished the first half, Eeyore." "More, is there? Might have guessed there would be. Still, maybe it will rain." But it did not even look like rain. Soon it was time for the 4 legs to take their turn at batting, with 76 runs needed to win. Owl slipped on his white umpiring coat and took up his position facing the stumps. Pooh was the first to bat. Christopher Robin told Kanga to field at a position called silly mid-off and Roo at silly mid-on, which meant that Kanga had to glare at Roo for several seconds before he could stop giggling. Then Christopher Robin handed the ball to Lottie. Twisting and turning as she ran up to bowl, Lottie sent the ball in an arc toward the stumps. When it hit the ground, it shot up and caught Pooh on the nose before falling back and landing on the wicket. "Out," said Owl, raising a wing sternly into the air. "Ow!" wailed Pooh. Then it was Tigger's turn. Didn't take him long to score 27 runs. Then, as an excitement at hitting the ball into a bird's nest in the chestnut tree, they had to send Owl to fly up and bring it down. Tigger bounced right over the wicket and landed on top of Eeyore. "How's that?" cried Christopher Robin. "Painful," gasped Eeyore from underneath Tigger. "Out! Caught by Eeyore," said Owl. Rabbit came into bat and nudged the ball here, there, and everywhere until he was bowled out by Christopher Robin. "I thought I'd better give the others a chance," Rabbit commented. The last in was Piglet, and it was now up to him to score the 6 runs needed to win the match for the Four Legs. Lottie was to bowl. During practice, Piglet had found Christopher Robin's birthday bat rather too long and heavy for him to wield, and Rabbit had made him a smaller version out of a cut-down broom handle. But with the first ball from Lottie, Piglet's broom handle bat shattered. "Ow!" cried Piglet. "That's done. And what will I bat with now?" "You'll have to use the big one," said Christopher Robin. "But it's bigger than I am," worried Piglet. "Maybe you can hide behind it, little Piglet," said Eeyore. "I'm sure Lottie won't bowl too fast at you," said Christopher Robin, but there was a glint in Lottie's eye that suggested otherwise. The otter ran into bowl. "I don't want to be here," muttered Piglet, shrinking behind the bat as Lottie approached, looking huge. "I'd much rather be in bed." The ball, released at great speed by Lottie, landed on the beginnings of a molehill and bounced onto the very edge of Piglet's bat. Piglet dropped the heavy wood with a squawk, but the ball had acquired such momentum that it sailed high into the air and straight over the stones that marked the boundary. A moment of amazed silence was followed by Owl raising his wings and flapping them in the air. "6 runs," he announced. "Four Legs win the match." "I did it!" Piglet was hopping up and down in excitement. "I hit a 6! I won the game!" The other players on the four-legged side, Tigger, Pooh, Rabbit, and Eeyore, gathered round Piglet, raised him high into the air. Christopher Robin, Lottie, Kanga, and Roo looked on smiling, despite their disappointment. "3 cheers for the Four Legs!" cried Christopher Robin. "Hip, hip, hooray!" cried the others. "And 3 more cheers for Piglet!" cried Roo. So they cheered and cheered some more, while Christopher Robin helped Henry Rush and his young assistants to complete the page in the scoring book. Had a few rubbings outs, but it looked like this. 4 Legs innings. Pooh, snout before wicket, 0. Tigger, caught by Eeyore, 27. Rabbit, bowled by Christopher Robin, 37. Piglet, not out, 6. Extras, 6. Total, 76. 4 Legs win. Late into the evening, everyone sat around a bonfire. The shattered bat had come in useful as kindling, and listened as Christopher Robin told them stories of the great cricketers of past generations. "But," he added, "in the annals of cricketing legend, whenever and wherever stories are told, they will also mention the mighty 6 that Piglet hit with a bat taller than he was in the test match between the 2 Legs and the 4 Legs late one summer afternoon in the 100-acre wood." "Oh," sighed Piglet happily as he carelessly toasted a cucumber sandwich. Then he dreamed for a while, until he was roused by Pooh announcing that he had composed a hum to commemorate the occasion. "I should very much like to hear it," said Lottie, who had, after all, been the top scorer of the match. "So would I," whispered Piglet. And so here's the hum, as hummed by Pooh on the night of the great match, as the eyes of the cricketers shone and glistened in the firelight under the chestnut trees. "Who was it hit the winning run for the 4 Legs against the 2? Though the bat in his hand disappeared into sand, was it me? No, it was you. Who was it won the cricket game for the 4 Legs against the 2? Though his bat was as big as a fully grown pig, was it me? No, it was you. Do we give a fig for the little pig and the 4 Legs who beat the 2? We give more than that for the pig and the bat and the mighty hit which completed it and the mighty swish like a massive fish. Was it me? No, it was you. Not Pooh, but Piglet. It was you." "But," said Pooh, "it really wasn't really like a fish, only I couldn't think of anything else, and then I ran out of time, and sometimes it's best to have something not quite right in a hum so that everybody can say, 'Humph, I could have done it better myself.'" "I couldn't have," said Christopher Robin quietly. Chapter 9, in which Tigger dreams of Africa. Eeyore, the old gray donkey and ex-headmaster, had been working on his letters with the aid of broken sticks. He was now expert at the straight letters like A and E and F and H. but needed to find bendy sticks for the curvy ones like C and R and S. Then you can't make Christopher Robin, said Piglet, and added after a moment's thought, or Piglet. Or Eeyore, said Eeyore. Can't make anything except the. What good is the without something to come after it? None at all, said Piglet, who had come to see Eeyore just in case he hadn't heard Pooh's cricketing hum. Eeyore looked down at Piglet's feet. Do appreciate this kind visit, he said, but I'll have to thank you for not standing on my thistle patch. I'm running short. Should I help you look for some more? If you have nothing better to do, Piglet. Old thistles are fine if you've got the teeth for 'em, but for crunchiness and fullness of flavor, there's nothing to beat a patch of young thistles with the purple flowers still on them. What's more, little Piglet, they're a cure for aches and pains. Do you have some of those then, Eeyore? After being wicked, Keeper, what can you expect? Just then Lottie, who had been teasing the trout in the stream, which was sparkling fresh again after a summer storm, joined them. Fine morning, she said pleasantly. No, said Eeyore, it wasn't then, and it isn't now. Don't mind him, said Piglet. He's out of thistles, Lottie. Is that all? I know where the best thistles are. Would you like me to take you there, Eeyore? As they walked through the forest carrying paper bags, a stripy thing bounced up to them. Good morning, Tigger, said Piglet nervously. No, said Eeyore, it wasn't, and now it's getting worse. Hello, Piglet, hello, Eeyore, hello, Lottie, cried Tigger. Where are you all off to? We're looking for thistles for Eeyore's aches and pains, said Piglet. I shall come too. Tigger bounced high over a tree stump and back. Could you not limit yourself to small bounces? Lottie asked. Very small bounces, Eeyore warned. Like this, said Piglet. He did a small bounce to show Tigger what he meant and tripped over some bindweed. The four of them set off. On the way, they met Kanga and Roo, who were enjoying the air after the storm, and the whole party headed into a cluster of trees. Just inside, they passed a clump of blackberry bushes, heavy with succulent berries. Those are blackberries, said Lottie. Best in a pie with short crust pastry and custard. Tiggers like blackberries, said Tigger, after tasting one. Well, be careful, Tigger, warned Kanga. Only eat the black and juicy ones, and don't eat too many. Tigger tasted several, and then grabbed a whole pawful, and then another, and then another. As he munched, he said something which could have been oomph, unless it was splurg. After a few swallows, Tigger beamed broadly and said, Tiggers like blackberries very much, with which he grabbed another pawful. Meanwhile, Eeyore had come to a copious clump of purple thistles and was chewing on one. Not the best, he mumbled as he chomped away, and grudgingly added, not the worst either. When Kanga, Tigger, and Roo arrived home, Kanga said she would make them pancakes for dinner. But Tigger said that he didn't think he would be able to eat any pancakes, so Roo said that he would eat them for him, and he did. When the pancakes had been disposed of, there was extract of malt for afters, but Tigger said he didn't think he could eat any of that either. Not even extract of malt? Asked Kanga. My, that's what comes of snacks between meals. After dinner, Roo brought out the big atlas, which they had borrowed from Christopher Robin. While Kanga darned socks, Roo and Tigger jumped over oceans, conquered nations, and tore off a corner of Madagascar by mistake. Suddenly, Tigger sat back on his haunches and looked down at West Africa, which was spread out beneath his feet. He blinked a couple of times and let loose a magnificent burp. Tigger, dear, said Kanga, a little less mildly than usual. Roo started to giggle, then looked more closely at Tigger. Are you all right? He asked. Never better, said Tigger, burping again and looking startled. What's that country? Looking over Tigger's shoulder, Kanga identified it. That's the Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast, murmured Roo. Sounds lovely. Tigger said, I was just wondering, where do I come from? Don't you remember? Asked Kanga. Now you come to mention it, I do. I remember a forest with trees much taller than the ones in the 100-acre wood, and monkeys. I'm sure I remember monkeys. At least, I think I'm sure. Sounds like Africa, said Kanga. Now it's bath time, and then bed. Oh, no, not bath time, cried Roo, which was what he always said. Tigger said nothing. Africa. It sounded right. Tigger found he could not sleep. He tried lying on his back, but he did not know where to put his legs. Tried lying on his side, but his whiskers tickled. Tried standing up, but only Eeyore could sleep standing up. So finally he curled up in a corner under the ironing board and shut his eyes. But sleep would not come. His skin felt crawly, as if all his stripes were running into one big stripe like raindrops on a window pane. But when he opened his eyes to check, he was not all orange or all black, but just the same as he always was. He did not feel tiggerish, did not feel well. He burped and groaned, and finally he slipped into a fitful sleep. Then he muttered, "Africa." But his eyes remained shut. "I expect he's dreaming of the jungle," said Rue, when they found him the next morning still muttering. "That's what I expect." At midday, Kanga sent Rue with a message to Christopher Robin's house. "Christopher Robin! Christopher Robin!" cried Rue. "Tigger's not well. He's twitching and making noises." "What sorts of noises?" "Rude ones, mainly." "It's probably influenza," said Christopher Robin. He had had it himself, and Matron had said to keep warm and drink lots. So he made a thermos of hot cocoa and took it around to Kanga's house, along with a blue blanket that had a silky bit around the edge. "But I don't think he's cold," said Rue. "At least he doesn't feel cold." When Christopher Robin put the blanket over Tigger, he kicked it off, and when he poured out a mug of hot cocoa, Tigger sent it flying all over a woolen rug which a cousin of Aunt Kanga's had crocheted and sent her for Christmas. Christopher Robin called on Rabbit and Owl. Rabbit said keep him warm and give him cocoa, which was not a lot of help, while Owl brought a black leather bag from which he removed a stethoscope and listened to Tigger's chest. "What can you hear?" asked Rue. "And can I be Dr. Next?" "No," said Owl, "you cannot, and all I can hear is drums, but it's probably just his heartbeat." Tigger rolled his eyes, and his tail stuck straight out behind him. Just then Pooh arrived, clutching a pot of honey. "Do you think Tigger would like this?" he asked. "Tiggers don't like honey," said Piglet. "I had forgotten," said Pooh, and he smiled a small, relieved smile. That night and all the next day, Tigger lay under the ironing board, muttering to himself, watched over by each of his worried friends in turn. Then on the third day, when Rabbit was checking the tidiness of Kanga's cupboards while her back was turned and going tut, tut, Tigger got up and slipped outside. "Poor Tigger," said Christopher Robin. "I wonder where he thinks he's going." "To Africa, perhaps," said Pooh. Rue asked, "Which way is Africa?" But nobody seemed to know. It was Eeyore who found Tigger lying on his back under an oak, staring at the branches. "Africa," Tigger muttered reproachfully at the tree. Eeyore lifted him gently onto his back and brought him home. "I was not always very kind to him," the old donkey admitted and sighed. "If only he hadn't bounced." "He's still not well," said Piglet. "Look at how loose his skin is." This was true. Tigger's skin appeared to be several sizes too large. "His tongue is not a good color," said Lottie. "I am not sure what color it is meant to be, but I don't think it's that color." "It's meant to be tongue-colored," Owl suggested, "and now does the color a tongue goes after it has eaten too many blackberries." "Unripe, unwashed, and without custard," added Lottie. "I've been thinking," said Christopher Robin, "if I were poorly, what I would most want." "To be well again," said Pooh. "Yes, Pooh, but what else? I think I should like to be surrounded by friendly and familiar things." "But he is," said Pooh. "If he's decided he's African," Owl said, reasonably enough, "we can't carry him to Africa. He's too heavy unless—" "Eeyore?" "Certainly not," said Eeyore. "I wonder," said Christopher Robin, "since we can't take him to Africa, then I wonder whether we could bring Africa to him." "Africa," said Tigger faintly and burped. Tigger lay in his favorite corner, restless and twitchy still, but in kind of a half-slumber. All around him the others had been busy, and now they were putting the finishing touches to what Christopher Robin had proposed. At first Tigger was aware of a gentle drumming. Was it his heart? No, it was coming from outside him. He opened his eyes. Where on earth could he be? Above him was a canopy of lush, green branches, and around him were swaths of fern and mosses. Water was dripping from the leaves, and it was hot and steamy. There was even a hissing of snakes. "Where am I?" asked Tigger in wonderment. Could I really be in Africa?" Then Christopher Robin's voice said, "Tigger, you are wherever you want to be. It's called imagination." Tigger closed his eyes and fell happily asleep, which was just as well, as it meant that he did not see Lottie drumming on 2 upturned waste paper baskets with rolling pins belonging to Kanga and Rabbit, or Pooh up a ladder with a watering can, or Christopher Robin tending a fire, or even Rue blowing into the spouts of various kettles to make what he imagined might be snake hisses. From that moment, Tigger's slow recovery began. He began to do bending and stretching exercises, and his burps turned into occasional gentle hiccups. He demanded a spoonful of extract of malt every hour on the hour, and within a couple of days his skin no longer hung loose. His tongue was the pinkish color proper for a fit Tigger, and his stripes, well, his stripes were the brightest and the best defined ever seen in the 100-acre wood, possibly as bright as any in Africa. One morning, a week or so later, Roo and Tigger and Piglet were sliding down the water chute when Christopher Robin and Pooh came briskly up to them. Christopher Robin was carrying a big book, and Pooh had a sheet of handsome blue writing paper. "Tigger," said Christopher Robin, "we have something important to tell you." "Really?" said Tigger, and splashed water over Roo, who splashed water over Piglet, who splashed water over Tigger. "What's that?" "You ought to be sitting down," said Christopher Robin. "It's sitting down stuff." "Righty-o," said Tigger, and sat down twice with a bit of bounce in between. "Shall I tell him?" Pooh asked Christopher Robin, who nodded. "Tigger, you aren't African." "Of course I am," said Tigger. "You can't be." "Why can't I be?" "You're a tiger, and there aren't any tigers in Africa," Christopher Robin explained. "Tigers come from Asia, China, and India, and places like that." "And circuses," said Pooh. Tigger thought about all this for a moment. It was a good deal to take in. "Who says?" Christopher Robin opened the big book at a place he had marked with a slip of paper. "The encyclopedia does." Tigger considered this with his head on one side. Then he looked triumphantly at Pooh. "Bears don't come from England." Christopher Robin smiled and said, "Well, there's one here, and there always will be. Pooh Bear." "Am I the only one?" asked Pooh. Christopher Robin thought for a moment. "Well, maybe not the only bear in England," he concluded, "but in all the world you are the one and only, incomparable Winnie the Pooh." We have one chapter left. I think I'm going to finish the book. Chapter 10, in which a harvest festival is held in the forest, and Christopher Robin springs the surprise. Summer was almost over. The windfall apples lay on the ground, which was heavy with dew, and one morning there was mist curling in the hollows down by the stream. Christopher Robin and Pooh were paying an encouraging visit to Eeyore, who was gloomier than ever. But after a few minutes, Eeyore was showing no sign of being encouraged, and his friends were running out of things to say. "Did you know that it'll soon be Harvest Festival?" asked Christopher Robin, after a particularly long silence. "What's that, then?" asked Eeyore suspiciously. "Well, every September, people gather together to celebrate the gathering in of the crops," explained Christopher Robin. "They make corn dollies and collect produce and put it on display. Then they sing about everything being bright and beautiful." "Is it?" Eeyore asked. "Can't say I'd noticed." "What's produce?" asked Pooh. "It's food that you've got to spare, Pooh, like pot of honey." "It is?" Pooh said, wondering if honey could be spare. "Yes, and it ought to be the best pot. The idea is to give things to the less fortunate." Pooh gulped, thinking of his row of honey jars, especially the pot second from the left at the back, which was the tallest and the fattest. "Who are the less fortunate?" asked Pooh. He felt that he would be one of them if he had to give away his honey. "Well, I'm not sure," said Christopher Robin. He lay on his back, looking up at the sky with a thoughtful expression. "We could have a harvest festival here in the forest," he said. "I could build a cart to put the produce in and tow it behind my bicycle. Then the less fortunate could see it and take things." "You'll do as you like, of course," said Eeyore loudly, "but I'm not singing. Bad for the stomach." Although Christopher Robin had learned carpentry at school, nobody had shown him how to make a cart, and it turned out to be quite tricky. The wheels ended up rather squarish, and when he came to make the tires, there was no rubber, so he used an old pair of pajamas instead. Then there was the question of how to attach the cart to the chassis, and the chassis to the axle, and the axle to the wheels. Working all this out involved a lot of sitting around, scratching his head, and turning bits of wood over in his hands. But eventually, the cart was finished. It was rather bumpy and hard to pull along, but a cart it certainly was. Christopher Robin parked it in front of his house with a sign that said, "For produce, put in here, please." Once the animals had gathered around to admire the cart, everyone started to make suggestions for what they could do to celebrate Harvest Festival. Kanga suggested baking cakes, always popular, and Rabbit suggested card games like Snap, Old Maid, and Racing Demon, not so popular, as Rabbit generally boasted when he won and sulked when he lost. But it was Christopher Robin who came up with a clever suggestion that would allow them to do all these things and more. "It's a bit late in the summer," he said, "but why don't we have a fete? We could have blackberries and cream instead of strawberries, and play games like ring toss and pin the tail on the donkey." All the animals cheered, with the exception of Tigger, who thought he wouldn't eat any more blackberries, and Eeyore, who said, "Excuse me," with great dignity. Then he said it twice more until everyone else was quiet. "I believe, Christopher Robin," he continued, "you will find that I already have a tail. True, it is attached by a nail, but you will understand my reluctance to have it just anyone bashing away at it. Oh, said Christopher Robin. I didn't mean you should. But the old donkey held up a hoof for silence. I shall give rides to the little ones instead, he announced. The morning of the harvest festival dawned bright and clear, and everyone had been planning and working for days, and by lunchtime the fit was set up. There were stalls for selling the bric-a-brac that had turned up when Rabbit helped everyone clear out their houses, and a ring-toss game made from sticks and rings, and Owl's platform where he would stand to recite poetry in a mysterious booth made out of blankets hung over tree branches. Have your paw read by Madame Petitlegre, said a sign that was pinned to the outside. In the middle of it sat the cart, full of produce that gleamed in the September sunshine. There were acorns from Piglet, small pot of honey from Pooh, strengthening medicine from Tigger, homemade crab apple jam from Rabbit, a whole tray of fairy cakes from Kanga, and much, much more. It had all been decorated with heather and yellow gorse. Perfect, said Christopher Robin, looking around the glade when preparations were complete. And now it's time for our picnic, he added as one of the fairy cakes was grabbed from the cart by a baby rabbit. The lunch was a fine one, with enough honeycomb and acorns to suggest that perhaps not all the best produce had been set aside for the less fortunate. Then as the sun started its journey down the other side of the sky, the animals opened their fit. From the start, Piglet's ring toss stand was popular. It had become especially busy when some of Rabbit's friends and relations decided to throw the rings over Piglet instead of over the pegs. Things only calmed down when Tigger got a ring wedged around his head, and Christopher Robin had to remove it with soapy water. The mysterious blanket booth turned out to contain Lottie, seated in a rocking chair and wearing a mauve turban. If you paid her a small coin and offered her your paw to examine, she would tell you either you would cross the water or that you would meet with a handsome stranger. If you paid her a large coin, you found out you were going to do both at the same time. Meanwhile, Eeyore tramped slowly around the glade with a crowd of little rabbits clinging to his back, shrieking with laughter. Then, when you're tired of these wonderful things, you could go to Rabbit's card booth and find yourself obliged to lose at various different games. Or you could listen to Owl reciting Uncle Robert's favorite poem. But it was a very long poem, and when it came to the hard-to-remember bits, Owl flapped his wings a few times and said, etc., and so forth, and so on, in such a grand way that it really was just as good as the poem. Or you could do just as Pooh did, and wander around from stall to stall, marveling at everything, trying all the games, and not doing terribly well at anything except at rolling the penny. And so the celebrations went on all afternoon until Kanga announced that, harvest festival or not, it was time for Roo to go to bed. But it won't be dark for hours, protested Roo. Now I've told you, started Kanga. But Pooh wasn't listening to this. He was looking around the glade for something that wasn't there. Where is Christopher Robin? He asked. Everybody stopped what they were doing. Rabbit looked from side to side and said, He isn't here. I know where he isn't, said Pooh, but there's still a lot of places he might be. We must organize a search party, squeaked Roo excitedly. No, dear, said Kanga, because then we might all get lost instead of just Christopher Robin. Isn't lost? Said Piglet, sounding as if he wasn't quite sure. We don't know where he is, but that isn't the same thing at all. Christopher Robin is just on his own somewhere. I wonder if that means he wants to be on his own. Oh, dear. It was then that Owl, whose eyesight was the best, flew up above the tallest of the tall oaks. But even with his sharp eyes, there was no Christopher Robin to be seen. Eeyore looked around the remains of the party and sniffed. Well, then, if that's the end of that, I'd better be going. But he did not leave. Roo, dear, it really is time for bed, said Kanga, her voice becoming quite sharp. But nobody moved. Pooh kept looking at the cart and the pot of honey. He was sure he had seen Tigger helping himself to a gulp or two of the strengthening medicine, and Piglet receiving 1 or 5 of the finest acorns, so he thought to himself that there was no harm in having a taste of the honey. By the time he was on to his 9th or 10th taste, he could hear a faint clunking and clattering sound. He looked around at the others, and they were all listening too. That sounds like a bicycle, he said. And if it is a bicycle, said Piglet, there must be someone on it to do the pedaling, and the only one who isn't here is Christopher Robin, and he's the only one with a bicycle. Piglet was quite correct. It was Christopher Robin's bicycle, and Christopher Robin was riding it. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when Christopher Robin came rattling into the glade on his bicycle. He jumped off and leaned it against a tree. Sorry I left the party, but I wanted to fetch you a little surprise, he explained. From his bicycle basket, he took some large objects that were carefully wrapped in old jerseys. They turned out to be the gramophone and a box of records. The animals watched as he unwrapped them and set them down in the grass. "Thought we could finish the day with some dancing," he said cheerfully. "Then I will take your generous presents to the less fortunate." Christopher Robin glanced into the cart and then peered inside more closely. "Or maybe I won't," he added. Then he leant over the gramophone to wind the handle and finished quietly. "Anyway, I'm leaving this here for you." Then the loudest, jumpiest, most harmonious and tumultuous music came tumbling out of the gramophone horn, and nobody could stay still. "Shake your feathers, move your feet about, for I'm sweet about you. Feel the beat because I'm incomplete, because I'm lost without you." They danced a proper 100-acre wood dance this time. At first it owed something to Lottie's dancing class, but then it became wilder and with much leaping up into the air. Tigger and Kanga vied to see who could jump highest, and the results were pretty even. And Roo and Piglet vied to see who could crouch down lowest. They were both beaten by Henry Rush, who hurried into a clump of heather immediately afterwards for fear of being trodden on. And even Eeyore danced, a dance all his own, with flying hoofs and mane and loud braying, and his tail going here, there, and everywhere. After Shake Your Feathers, they played the Bam Bam Bammy Shore, and Yes, We Have No Bananas, and My Grandfather's Clock. And while the Bam Bam Bammy Shore was playing for the second time, Christopher Robin stopped dancing and rolled up the jerseys and put them in the basket of his bicycles. Pooh, who was by now rather tired, left the dance as well. He padded over to see what Christopher Robin was doing, although he thought he could guess. "Ah," said Pooh solemnly, because this was one of those moments when you had to say something, even though there was nothing right for the occasion. "Well then, Pooh," said Christopher Robin, leaning his bicycle back against the tree. "So—" He stopped to give Pooh a hug. It was a bit awkward because Christopher Robin was quite tall these days, but Pooh hugged him back as best he could. Over Pooh's head, Christopher Robin finished, "I'll be away for a while again, but I know you'll look after the forest." "I'll try," said Pooh. Really, he wasn't sure what looking after the forest might involve, but if Christopher Robin thought he could do it, that meant that he could. Christopher Robin let go and gave Pooh a nod, got on his bicycle and pedaled swiftly away, turning just once to give a last wave and a smile before he was lost among the trees. Later, after Owl and Rabbit had had an argument over who would look after the gramophone and the records, and Lottie and Eeyore had solved the argument by carrying off the whole lot between them, Pooh and Piglet walked home through the moonlit wood. "I wonder why things have to change," murmured Piglet. Pooh thought for a while, then said, "Gives them a chance to get better, like when the bees went away and came back." "I suppose so," said Piglet a bit hesitantly. Then he cheered up. "It's been a good summer, really. Do you remember that 6 I hit to win the cricket match?" "I do," said Pooh, a bit less cheerfully than Piglet, as he also remembered being hit on the nose by the cricket ball, and he remembered Piglet going down the well, and the census, and the academy, and the produce, and the gramophone. It all seemed mixed up with the fluff in his head, but at the same time it was so special that it deserved a hum, so he sat down on a log and made one up. Christopher Robin has gone away. He would not stay. No, he would not stay. When will we see him? Will he be back? Did he even have time to pack? He left his music, but took his machine, the best and the bluest we'd ever seen. He left us all wondering. Gone for good? No, he'll be back to our lovely wood. One day, perhaps, when the sun is high, out of the blue we will hear him cry, "Piglet and Eeyore, Rabbit and Pooh, I'm back again to spend time with you." "I've singed it, but I haven't signed it," said Pooh, "because I can't write." "Doesn't matter," said Piglet. "I was worried you weren't going to put me in like you always used to, but then at the end you did." "You don't rhyme very much," said Pooh. "Are there many rhymes for Christopher Robin?" wondered Piglet. "I don't think so. Not good ones." "We could go and ask him tomorrow." Then they remembered that Christopher Robin wouldn't be there tomorrow, or the next day. So they went off together, and if you passed by the 100-acre wood on an early autumn evening, you might see them, arm in arm, strolling contentedly under the trees until they are swallowed up by the mist. And that's the end of Return to 100-Acre Wood. You can borrow this book if you'd like to, since I'm done reading it. I hope you enjoyed the readings that we did this last few weeks, and next we'll be starting a new book. If you have a book that you would like me to read, send me a message. I'll read it. If you want me to just choose a book, I'll do that too. But if you have a suggestion, I'm looking for suggestions of a book to read. Everybody enjoy your afternoon. Miss you. Bye.